All right, so all first-timers except for John. John's been to a couple with us. So it's really, really simple. We're not here to give information, although your request for, can we do a bit of research? Happy to do that. If you give it to me, or I'll give you my phone number, my card, you can call me, we'll set you up. We have a little bit of a research team at the museum, and we always offer at least 1 hour free research. If you have a house or a property you're curious about, we'll see what we can find. And I think Laura said the same thing. So the project's really quite simple. The library reached out to us at the museum a little bit because I've had some experience with some oral histories and what we've chosen to do with that information. So the library reached out to us when they were putting together a 150 project and said, we want to do something where we reach out to the community and start to capture some of their stories and some of their memories. And also, the feedback that the library had been getting over the years is always that their visitors want to see more old photos. So they sort of took those two ideas and created this project. So the project is really simple. They created the old photos in large size. Have you seen them around town at all? Like I have a big one hanging in the museum where I'm from. So they've created these photographs in multiple sizes, depending on which shop window it was going in, and hung it there for people to see what that building used to look like. The library's collection of photos is really quite extensive, so they were able to do that. And the idea is that it would prompt people to come, talk about that building or other buildings and stories that they remember that surround that building or that area. So really, like I said, they just asked the museum to come on board and help facilitate some of the conversations and discussions. So that's all we do. We just look at pictures. I don't know how, I didn't count how many we've got today. I like to keep it all under an hour. I find that as soon as we all start to hit that 1 hour mark, it gets to be a bit much. But it also depends how much we talk and how much we remember. So this could be done in 30 minutes. We'll just see how it all goes. So it's really simple. The first 2 photos actually speak to the same idea. It's Bright's Wine. So that one, Bright's Wine, and then if you go to the, oh, we've lost.
I'm here.
Can you do it? That's also a Bright's Wine photo. I don't know if that building or that area means anything to you guys. Can you see, go back to the other one for me, Laura? Okay, a little different than what we've done in the past, because these have been what we have shown before and has a little blurb on it. So Christine's going to read the blurb.
Alrighty.
And then that'll help you get us sort of located where these buildings and shops are.
Okay, here we go. Bright's Wines. Established in 1874, the Niagara Falls Wine Company moved to Dorchester Road in 1890. In this 1957 photo, workers are unloading boxes of grapes for processing. A new facility near the original location was built in the 1990s, which now houses Arterra Wines Canada administrative offices and a wine rack outlet store.
Anybody familiar with that building? Where it was, what it was?
We've all driven by it for 100 years.
Do you remember it then, or do you think about it now? Because I know where it is now, in my mind. I have an idea. So when you think about that spot, did you know anybody that ever worked there?
Oh, lots of people worked at Bright's Wines.
Yes.
I used to cut the lawn of the vice president of Bright's Wines.
Did you?
He's a grandfather of a good friend of mine, George Mowers, who you named a transit terminal after here, which I think you've torn down since.
And where was his house?
He lived in Rolling Acres as he was vice president, so they were doing very well. But and there's always lots of Brights. Remember Bright's Champagne? That's what was a big thing. And that was. This is long before the big deluge of wineries in Niagara. Probably before they even changed the grapes too.
Yeah, I think you'd be right on that.
I was going to say that I think my father used to supply fruit there too.
Yeah, because they had the old Concord grapes or whatever, and then, I forget when it was, they ripped them all up and planted the same kind of grapes they grow in Italy and France.
Is this the room? Oh.
So they could
Is this the room? I'm Margaret.
Yes, we've already started.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Before you head in, I'll just get you to fill.
Just a little form I need you to fill out before you find yourself a seat.
We could get it afterwards, but you can't leave
All right.
without signing it,
All right,
okay?
I'll
You
do it.
promise?
Yes.
Same for you?
Well, why don't you hold on to it?
Perfect, yeah. Here, I'll let you hold on to it, and then we can fill it out at the end.
Sounds
And
good.
there's some seats right over there. The form is just because we're recording all the information that we're gathering to
Okay.
use as an oral history project.
Oh,
Is there some seats right over there?
yeah, so you have to be willing to sign the form in order to participate.
See it thing.
Right over here.
Right here's
I've got you. Whoops.
Yeah.
Low
Got it,
chairs.
because I'm
I've got you.
totally
I've got you.
There
Turn
you
right
go.
around, and the chair is right behind you.
I
Thank
mean,
you. Whoops.
Oh, you're there.
George's
There you go.
son,
Those chairs.
he started the,
Yes.
George's son, is that the owner that
George
Mark was
Moase.
talking
No, that
about?
was vice president.
Or the vice president,
George's
sorry,
son.
yes.
he has the gas station, big one on the corner of Highland, I think, and Lundy's Lane.
Someone
He has a big gas, and
Did
his
it
son
just-
didn't
Yes.
do what George wanted to do. He was interested in cars, and he took an apprenticeship,
Right.
and he owns that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then lots of people worked there over the years. That was common, that you know somebody or a neighbor that worked
A lot of,
at
a
Brights.
lot of students had summer jobs there. too.
Summer jobs. That makes good sense. And do we remember anything about when it left, when it stopped producing? Did that cause any hardships or major transitions that you can think of? We're talking about Bright's
Yes.
Wine, ladies, who just joined
I think
us.
it was a huge, I spent more of my life in Stamford than anywhere else that I spent, so at least 40 some odd years. And I found it to be like there was this huge empty hole that nobody could figure out what that was. Even though they couldn't stand bright wines, it was really the only thing in Niagara Falls. The others were so fly-by-night, and they were really crap wines too. Nobody was making good wines until recent decades.
Yeah.
I'm going back several decades. But the idea of its longevity had been there, you know, it was way back for a long time, one of the oldest manufacturers in the community. It was kind of a staple, and you know, people had worked there for many decades at various levels of the echelon, and it seemed as though in the community of Stamford, to me, it just, I mean, when I had spoken to during those years, it was like this great big hole. Now, mind you, that's been filled in because look at the wine industry we have around us nowadays, you know.
Yeah, but like, as somebody that didn't grow up here in Niagara, I certainly remember Bright's Wine, so you didn't have to be local to know Bright's Wine. And especially, what did you mention? Somebody mentioned the sparkling or the...
I used to work as a boy at the Chateauguay Wines, which subsequently
Oh.
was taken over by Bright's. Bright's was subsequently taken over, well, Chateauguay became Canadian Wines Limited and a couple of other names, and then Bright's. And then Bright's, I believe, was taken over by the conglomerate that included Enniskillen. And I think it's part of Constellation now. I'm
Right.
not sure.
Yeah, that sounds about right for
Well,
the
they're
latter
in
part.
France, Australia, they're all around the world
Right,
now.
yes, Constellation is international too.
Yeah, it is.
But they did get out, as this gentleman was saying, they had Concord grapes, which we all love to eat. When I cut the grapes in the vineyard, I'm sure I ate twice as much as I put in the boxes.
Wouldn't surprise me, I would have done that.
They were good for everything except wine.
Yeah, they're good for grape juice, but not
They
good for
were
wine.
great
That's why they
for
ripped them all out and put the
Yeah.
other ones in.
Yeah.
My mother and my grandmother both used to buy the Concord grapes and made homemade grape juice. No attempt at wine. They were Methodists. They didn't drink wine. But it was great grape juice. And my mother would parse it out sparingly. You know, we had to have permission to go down to the basement and get a bottle and open it up. You know,
Right.
there had to be a special occasion. One of the things I remember is not only it was started by a single individual in those early days, and it wasn't just wine, there was the grape juice department too, which is part of the same family, but in a different location. I think it was down closer to the curve of Stanley. I can't remember exactly, it's so long ago. But they were renowned for that as well, you know.
Fascinating. Great. Well, that's off to a good start, everybody. I think the next picture was Bright's as well.
Yeah, I had the
So
same
it was just the same thing we were talking about. It just
Did everybody ever drink? Anyone ever drink the wine? I know you were saying it was terrible, but...
Well, it was cheap and
It was
cheerful.
cheap
The
and
champagne
cheerful.
was, I mean, the champagne, everyone bought Bright's Wine's champagne at
Yeah.
New Year's, right? And because it was fizzy and,
Yeah.
My
And
parents would buy things like sherry and port,
Yeah.
which is, nobody
Yeah.
who wants to drink that kind of junk. But that's all you
Yeah.
could get around this area.
Yeah.
But in my youth, I mean, and once I became an adult, the wine wasn't too bad. And certainly I would always buy Brights over other brands. We didn't have all of the,
that was
you know,
before VQA.
I'm talking in
Yeah,
the
exactly.
60s when there weren't the number of wineries there are today. But, so it wasn't too bad. I liked their white wine in particular. I don't care for the red wine anyway, but.
I remember the bubbles.
So these are the trucks that served Bright's wines?
We don't know that for sure, but
Oh,
I
okay.
think that you can make some pretty safe assumptions of the one at least in the back. That looks like a working kind of.
So they look about
truck.
1930s, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what I would have guessed. Hard to tell exactly.
They
The
might have been
clothes
people
are a
bringing
little
grapes in.
deceiving for that.
They might have been hauling in their own grapes to the factory.
Yeah. I'd love to know who those people are. All right, good, thanks. What's next?
Beaver lumber.
Oh, yes.
There we go.
Oh, I have a story about beaver.
All right,
lumber.
let's let Christine just read the
Okay.
description.
I have like a little description here, yeah. Beaver lumber has a long history in Niagara Falls, dating back to the early 1940s. In July 1977, a fire destroyed the building. The business was quickly rebuilt, and they remained in business until they closed in 1982. Today, Delta Bingo and Gaming are located at this site.
Yeah, right.
I have a family story.
Sure.
My father's sister married one of the partners of Reed Brothers Lumber. They were the forerunner of Beaver Lumber, okay? So that would have been in the very early part of the 20th century, maybe even late last century. There were at least 4 Reed Brothers, R-E-I-D, that actually my father's relatives, the women married them.
Oh.
I didn't, the fact they were making a lot of money might have their reason, but anyway, so I had various aunts and my father's cousins who also were married to one of the Reed brothers. They didn't seem to have long lives. When my aunt, who was born in, what about 1895 to 7, something like that. She was a young woman when she married her husband, who was a widower, and he was many years older than she.
I didn't shop here much.
But
Did you? That was a local lumberyard.
Yeah.
I had the impression Beaver lumber was on 4th Avenue at one.
No, it was on Drummond Road.
Pardon?
You're on Drummond Road near the railroad tracks,
Yeah.
by the canal.
but anyway, they had a lovely house on Victoria Avenue, just a few doors from Hetherington's. And the house was eventually, my aunt eventually sold. She'd been a widow for a few years. The 3 children had gone off to university, so she sold that house to Dr. Minnis, who had his practice in that house, right across from Dobie's. Well, you might not know that Dobie's was there, across the road. She was a very good friend of the Dobie's, that's the flower people, okay?
How long did you say this Beaver lumber was there?
Christine can give us those dates again. The fire, it was rebuilt after the fire until the 80s, right?
And then it was closed?
After the, yeah, it was rebuilt after the fire, but then it closed
Yeah,
and
it
it's now
closed
the
in
big old
82.
hall.
Do you know the reason why it closed?
I don't know the reason why it closed. Does
Oh.
anybody know?
Well, it was a franchise, because
Yeah.
they had Beaver Lumbers in Hamilton too, but I just think the company just probably went out of business,
Yeah,
like
I know
companies
where
do
the
after a
Beavers-
long time.
Yeah, the
He's
Beaver
right.
where I grew up is no longer there.
Because that was
Isn't
like
it?
the Home Depot of the day, without,
Yes.
except it was
Yeah.
mostly lumber, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember,
And they all looked
yeah.
the same.
Yes.
Did they?
Every town you went to, they had
Yeah.
the same
Yep.
long,
Yep.
sprawling A-frame shape,
Oh, really?
for sure.
Well, there was a huge lumber company out in Stamford on Portage Road near the Delphi restaurant. It's not called Delphi anymore. And I think that was almost that sort of took up where beaver lumber left off.
Yeah, there
It
seems
had
to,
their day,
yeah.
you know.
I think Mark's right, the company just kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the
But
company just went out of
originally, it
business.
was,
Yeah, it was
Right
the 80s.
afterwards.
the company was originally founded by Reed Brothers, and that was more than 100 years ago.
Right.
Oh, I think John has
What were you
something to
gonna
say here.
After it reopened then,
Yes.
as they, on Sundays, Saturday, Sundays, you went in right, what do you call that? You went in right into a stall.
Oh, like a flea market.
Yeah, there's a flea market in there too for a
In that
while.
parking lot.
That's right. No, inside as well.
And inside.
Yeah.
Inside, yeah.
Gee, I don't remember that.
And it
Yeah,
was
that's before the bingo.
Saturday, Sunday, and weekends,
Yeah,
That
we
was-
used to have that in there.
before the bingo.
Right.
Seems like
And
the
there was a
perfect-
few things and little things that went for 2 or 3, maybe a week or two, before the shrine went in with the bingo hall.
So does anybody remember anybody that worked there in its heyday, sort
Well,
of
I
in those
can remember
70s?
getting
and-
screwed up an order.
Do you?
I worked for a hotel builder. Well, it's the big hotel that oversees right over the falls, right at the present time. I can't quite remember its name, but he sent me out as a 14-year-old boy with no license to drive the half-ton truck down to pick up a couple of bags of cement.
Mhm.
And I picked up the wrong bags of cement, which infuriated him, and it kind of upset me too. And the problem was that the lumber company closed at 5 o'clock before I could get back to change them. But I managed to do it. It just took a lot of talk. But
So did they make the mistake with the order, or did you make the mistake with the order?
I can't remember that much detail, and if I did, I wouldn't want to tell you.
Well, it's a pretty recognizable or identifiable shape and style, and you can see the bingo hall almost without even trying, can't you?
Yeah.
All right, very good. What have we got next?
We've got the Monroe House.
The
So
one at
Oh
Thoroldstone?
dear, this is not a
Hold on,
very
let
good
me read
photo. We'll read it and this will tell us
Yeah.
where.
beginning in 1870, generations of the Monroe family farmed the tender fruit land at the corner of Dorchester and Thoroldstone Road.
Good, yes.
Many city streets, including Alberta, Longhurst, and Crawford, were named after the varieties of Monroe peaches. Eventually, the farm property was sold for a housing project and the Monroe Plaza. The family relocated their historic house to Freeman Street, where it still stands today. So yeah, Thoroldstone
They
Road.
then relocated to Freeman. When they
It's a
went to
bad
move
picture,
it,
isn't it?
the company
Yes. Well,
that
it's
they
an old
hired
picture.
to move it,
Yeah.
they tried to move it with the addition on. There was they had to put an addition on through the years. They tried to move the whole thing. They got to a corner and tried to turn, and they got stuck because the wires and overhead wires. So they just left it, and the guy who was moving it, he bought equipment of his own, and they cut it in two.
Wow.
And they moved to one section onto Homewood, on Freeman Street, where they did a real nice job of restoring it. And the other piece, I forget where it is now.
Wow.
But that was one of the oldest, it had been in the family. That was the oldest family still in a farm from the 1700s.
I remember the hue and cry when there was rumors of that building that was going to be torn down. This is before the decision was made to move it finally. And it was, everybody was just up in arms in the community, not just Stamford. It was like, you cannot tear this house down, you know. It's nice to see that kind of enthusiasm, but fortunately the house was at least restored and moved.
What is the area of Stamford?
Where
How
this-
far does it go south and north
It's not
and
a straight
east?
line, so you need a map for someone to show you.
Oh, I know the streets because I lived here all my life. How far did it go down?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It went as far north as the Town Line Road that goes up beside Bevan Heights.
Okay, yes, I know where that is.
And Stanley, you know,
Yep.
that's kind of an east boundary. And the southern boundary went, I think, about as far as
Queenie?
Lundy's Lane.
No, past Lundy's Lane.
Well, in some parts,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
In some parts, it didn't go past Lundy's
No,
Lane and
no,
Ferry. So that's where you've got a very skewed line.
The street across from the hospital
Yes.
was the dividing line, because we lived in the Stamford side.
Right, I remember
We
that.
had an apartment on the Stamford side, our
Yes.
first apartment. And
Yeah, okay.
that's where the
But-
line went down.
But the thing is, you didn't have a straight line. It was like steps.
Well, it
So
was-
you can't say one particular road on the south side is the line, because there was it moved around so much.
That
And
li-
over time, it changed.
That street, the one across from the hospital, it was...
North Street, are you talking North Street or Kitchener? Or are you talking Main?
Are you talking Portage?
No, one next to
Where?
North,
Or Stanley?
not neither. Trying to think of it. I lived on there, no, well. The street next to the,
It'll come to you, John.
just across from the hospital, the front of the hospital.
Well, the front was Portage, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Portage, the one,
And the one side is north and the other side is Prospect or Kitchener.
North Street, Prospect Street.
Prospect Street.
There you
Sorry,
go.
right up the middle of Prospect
Yeah.
Street.
Okay.
But you see, that line kept moving around.
Yeah,
I
but
knew
on that
people, for instance, who worked or lived in the Pine Grove Avenue area. They couldn't go to Stamford even though they lived closer to Stamford, but they had to go down to CI.
I
And
can't
that
tell you
was
about
not
their
uncommon.
Yeah, that's true.
No, and it's still
Progress.
common today, that's just the way that, right?
So what's
Yeah.
the next
So
picture?
this one was at Dorchester and Thorold Stone,
That's
roughly?
right, yeah.
Does anybody remember those peaches? They talked about how the brands, the names of the peaches inspired
Well,
names.
they sold peaches out of their barn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they-
yeah.
Oh, they had a
so-
big fruit stand.
Yeah, big
Yeah.
fruit
That was a
stand.
landmark for the longest
Yeah.
time, and that was almost the, I guess it'd be the western
Must
urban
be-
boundary, because once you got
Yeah.
past that,
Sure.
heading west, it was just farmland, it was
Country.
open space, there
Yeah.
was like almost no homes except the odd farmhouse.
So
Yeah,
their
it's
farm
behind the
stand would
house.
have had more than peaches then?
Yeah, they had lots of stuff, they had pumpkins,
Apples.
they had pumpkins in the fall, and they had,
Yeah.
and you'd see all the stuff, it all sitting out there, they had a great big,
And did everybody just think of it or refer to it as Monroe's? Was
Yes.
that how it was thought of? Yeah, I
Yeah,
can think
just
about.
Monroe's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
very well known.
There is
Yeah.
a living Monroe, direct descendant of that Monroe family, who was, the patriarch more or less was Pat Monroe,
Mhm.
who was well known in the Stamford Volunteer Firemen's, worked at the Simon, but the granddaughter or great-granddaughter is still living in downtown Niagara Falls.
Well,
Her name is Patty Monroe.
the house on Thurlstone Road and on the Dorchester side, you
Yep.
know, the big,
Oh, this is-
the corner is all the
Yes.
field owned by Hydro.
Yeah, it's too bad, wasn't it a gem of a house?
The lady who
That
lives
was
in
a
that
land.
house,
Yeah. it's
I've
nice.
talked to her years ago, and she said
Can I see that
her
later?
brother,
I can't read it now.
he was a brother. The guy's, her husband, Monroe, was a brother.
Okay.
And he went to he fought, he volunteered, he went to the army. So when he came back, he thought he'd still be a partner. But the two brothers living on the farm said, no way.
Oh, that's a
We
sad
needed you
story.
during the war, you weren't here. And so,
Changed.
thanks.
Wow.
Okay.
We're
What's
thinking of
next,
the line,
Laura?
when I was
Oh.
growing up downtown on Valley Way at 4th Avenue, the swimming pool was just, that was the end of the world. Everything beyond that was farms, pasture country, okay? I'm dating myself now. And so that would be up to Stanley, well, before you get to Stanley, going west, okay? Anything the other side of Stanley was all Stamford.
Yeah.
It wasn't part of Niagara Falls anymore.
Yeah.
And as time passed, this profile of Stamford just kept shrinking and shrinking and shrinking as subdivisions were being built during the 40s, 50s, 60s, etc.
Yeah, pretty common story around Ontario's
Sure, yeah.
history.
Okay.
I was afraid of this. That other photo was cut off a little bit at the bottom.
I know, I don't know what's going on with these.
Yeah, that's
So
what
now this one's the
So it
same
is the-
thing. I know, that's why.
Is it a body of water under there?
It's the river, isn't it?
Yeah, so here, I'll
So
read
we have a
the
backup
caption.
plan. We do have them here. We can just pass these around, turn the lights
Oh,
up.
'cause
Is the next one gonna work by any chance?
I don't
Let's
know.
just
It's a
look.
PowerPoint, right? So it's a matter of how they download
Oh,
it.
well, let's try this one.
There you go.
Let's do this one.
Great.
Yeah, that used to be on the
There you
corner
go.
of,
Do you want Christine to read what we
Yes.
do know about
Was a
it?
variety store.
it's in Avondale
It
now,
is,
isn't it?
yeah. Not quite in Avondale. Let Christine read it, and then we'll go from there.
All right, so Stamford Center Library. The first library branch opened in Stamford at this location in June of 1957. It was open for 4 afternoons and 3 evenings per week with a 3-item borrowing limit. In 1962, this branch moved into the Town and Country Plaza, where it remains today. The building still remains, now occupied by People's Variety.
So
Yeah,
you were thinking Avondale, but yeah.
It was
the
Gold's Variety
store.
before that.
yeah.
And
So
that's
what
just
street
across
would
the
that
street
be?
from where we are, right?
It's on
Pretty
the-
much.
it's
Still
on-
there.
It's on the corner of
It's Vine Street, isn't it?
Vine
It is,
Street,
yeah.
yeah,
Portage and Vine, you mean?
Yeah.
yeah.
I see. Oh, okay. All right, I get you.
Has a large parking lot.
Yeah,
Right, a
it
small
joins
shop
the,
with
the
a large
Avondale
parking
and
lot.
this,
Well, there used to be Gold's on one side and
Yeah.
Max Milk on the other.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the two changed over the years many times. That's what it was for the longest time.
Picture that we didn't.
I don't know. We'll get back to it if we can. We'll see if the computer wants to agree or not. If not, we'll pass that one around.
Yeah,
when
I'll
we get
set
to the end.
the paper aside and
The ones we can do
all the
on the
broken
screen,
ones afterwards
we
with the
will.
lights on.
okay.
So who remembers going to that? When did it come here? 60?
57, she said,
Is when it opened or when it moved here?
when it opened.
In 62, it moved to where
To
we
where
are
it is
now.
now.
No,
but it
no,
opened
actually,
in
it didn't. It
57.
moved to, there was a building on the, over here that it was originally, like Stamford Center branch was over here. Then it moved here several, I think it moved here in the late 70s, early 80s. It moved, it was right, there was a building right over here where Fine Kettle of Fish used to be, and a hair salon. It was in that building there. Because I was, as a kid, remember going there on Saturdays all the time.
And this too, we went around the back, downstairs, was the children's section.
But you had to go through back.
Yeah, you went around down the side of this building, round to the parking lot there, and there was you go in that door, and you went downstairs to the children's section.
You remember doing that?
Yeah,
Oh, that's fantastic. That's the way as a kid growing up.
because upstairs was the adults.
I thought about
I don't
churches that way
remember.
because the Sunday
That's
school
before
was
me.
always outside and around the back, and I always thought that that was like where the kids went, and then the grown-ups went in the front door. So
Oh.
similar.
That's where the booths were.
Yeah.
All right, so it said it moved to the Town and Country Plaza, but not necessarily where we're
We're in
sitting
the Town
right
and
now.
Country
Yeah,
Plaza,
it would
but
have
there's
been
a, if you
across
just over here in
Yeah.
the little section between the Stamford Green Plaza and where, was it Home Hardware still there? I don't know where it is, but right next
Yeah.
to Home Hardware, there's a building, that used to be a fish and chip place, but they were in there the longest,
that's-
before, then they moved here.
The next photo, I think, is the
Yeah,
is
okay.
what you're, yeah, because,
Let's see
so,
that.
Let's see if it comes up.
That's
Yeah,
the front of
the
this
next one.
building.
That's where
Is
we are
that it?
now.
Yeah, that's this one.
yeah, because the
Doesn't
description
look
of,
much different, does it?
No.
the description for this one is, it's kind of borrowing on some of the information we just learned. So in 1953, Stamford Township appointed a library board, and in 57, a library was open at Portage and Vine. It moved to the Town and Country Plaza a few years later in 1962. When Stamford Township and the city of Niagara Falls merged in 1963, the library became a branch in the city's library system. It moved again to its current plaza location in 1974
That makes sense.
and was enlarged to its present size in 1986. So yeah, you're,
Do you remember then going to all three? You said you remembered the first one.
Sure.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's great. Very good.
What's the next one?
All right.
Let's have a look.
the Queen's Hotel. Originally located on River Road, the Queen's Hotel was built in 1872 by Philip Bender. In 1927, A.H. Collette purchased the hotel, dismantling the building, and had it recreated on St. Paul Avenue with
Yep.
only minor changes. Today, the building is home to, does anybody know?
Yeah. It's the
The
coach.
Queensway.
Yeah.
The coach.
Yeah, that's right, the Queen's
Okay.
Coach Family Restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all the information I have, so what do you guys know?
The senior students at A and Meyer used to go there for drinks.
Yeah.
I wasn't me, I was before, like, I was too far away, but I remember the owner's wife was it bus or something like that, used to bank at the CIBC across the street from our house. I used to see her once or twice a week going in there, I guess depositing all the funds. And that's one of the old style hotels up until I think the 80s even. They had separate entrances. They had men's and women's.
Yes, they did.
And women and
Ladies and escorts.
ladies and escorts. That's it. Yeah, two separate entrances.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
John, did you have something to add?
Well, after the bridge fell down, or got knocked down in 1938, when they planned the new bridge, which is further downriver.
Yep.
And one of the places that had to be, this building was moved from River Road because it was in the way of the relocation for the new bridge.
Oh, that's interesting that that was part of its catalyst for it.
The other one was, you know, the terminal for the railroad was there too. It was demolished. We lost it then. When we've got no pictures really of the inside of that. That's the one we really would like to have photographs of that. We have good photos of the outside.
Of the outside. Yeah,
not of
another
the
common
inside.
story. Interior shots are hard to find in library and museum as a rule. Everybody thinks to photo document the outside, but we don't do very good at
Anyway,
photo documenting
it
the
was
inside.
a very lovely building down on River Road, but
And I'm
they
guessing
did a
it.
great job of moving it up here.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they moved up to St. Paul because that was the Highway 8 access into Niagara Falls. So they probably got a lot of business from travelers from Toronto or wherever coming to Niagara because you go right by it.
Pre-QEW, that was the only road in.
Yeah,
So
and that's a big plot of land.
And I'm guessing they probably got a lot of business, like a lot of travelers business staying
What do
there.
you think the age of the cars is?
Oh, I don't know.
That's-
Who in the room knows that?
I'm guessing.
20s,
I think
30s?
it's the early 50s,
That's-
early 30s.
Yeah, pre-World War II anyway.
Definitely, through World War II.
My grandparents owned the property next door.
Really? On
Sure.
River Road?
No,
Oh,
this is
On
on
St. Paul.
on
On
St. Paul. They own the cabins and the little store.
Okay, I remember them.
Fabulous. What were
Yeah.
they called?
Benner. They own the cabins and they would get the people, as they said, there was no, that's the only way into Niagara Falls.
Yep, that was the highway.
That's the
Yep,
highway
that was
in.
Highway 8, yeah.
And one of the first things they'd see then as people were coming from
Sure.
away.
Yeah,
And plus they owned all the fruit farm behind.
right.
Eggs are up there.
That could easily be 1920s by those cars.
Yeah.
They look like gangster
Well,
cars.
They do look a little gangster.
Did you say this is the St. Paul's location?
Yeah.
I don't know, is
Or the
it?
River Road location? Does anybody recognize?
What year
Couldn't
did
agree.
say it moved?
Because it moved, what was purchased by the Collette family in 27. And then it just says it was dismantled and re-erected, so I don't know exactly what year it moved
Well,
based on the.
If you look at the
That's
slope of the
That's the
land,
Queen's Hotel, the big sign.
can you
on
see
top.
where the land is going up on an upper level?
On the left?
You don't find that in that spot right now.
No, you
It's
don't.
totally flat.
Yeah.
But you go down to River Road and you will see
Yeah, that's
that
probably
slope
River
up.
Road.
Yeah, I think that's the River Road.
Yeah,
Road.
so I
this
think
would
that's
have to
still
be-
River Road.
Then my grandparents didn't own the property
No.
next door.
For the new building, yeah, so this would have to be 27 or earlier than
Yeah.
likely
Yeah.
then.
Good, excellent.
Next
What have we
one.
got next, Laura?
What's next?
The Cobblestone Lodge.
That's for Highland Avenue.
Oh my goodness, that's Stone Road, isn't it?
Yep.
So this
That's 2 doors
photo,
down from my grandmother.
oh,
Is it?
awesome. This photo
Is
of
it still there?
Cobblestone Lodge dates back to the mid-1930s. It was managed by Mrs. Harry Gracie as a tourist home along the once popular highway at number 8. Brother James and Mark Murphy now own Murphy's Music, which opened in 1992. So this is pretty much right beside the big Camiso's Plaza.
So
Yeah.
this isn't the one on Highland Avenue? Because there's
No.
one like that on Highland Avenue.
There's also one like this on York Road.
Well, there's a lot of those houses on,
Yeah,
were
they-
rooms for tourists, because my grandmother did the same thing. I think next door, that house there belonged to the Caverleys at one time, and then my grandmother would live right next to that one. I remember that house. I remember walking by it all the time as a kid.
Yeah, I kind
And that's
of.
the one that your grandmother, you said that in the summer, family members?
Yeah, she rented out rooms to tourists, and then during the Depression, they took boarders.
Yeah. And nobody recognizes it now necessarily?
I remember
as
it.
Murphy's
I
music
don't
studio?
know what it looks like now.
Well, I have a good friend who lived either there or the next one down after Carol's. His name was Glintz, and they had a lot of, I think, 9 children.
Wow.
Is this house still standing? I can't remember.
I think it is.
It
Doesn't
just
look like
says that
anymore.
Murphy's
It
Music
doesn't.
is
Still-
there.
None of them
So
do.
whether that
They've all been redone, recovered.
So this is on Portage, are you
No,
saying?
Thorold Stone.
Yeah.
Thorold
Just down
Stone.
from Camiso's,
Just down from just down from
I
the
don't
Five
think
Corners.
it's there anymore, though.
don't you?
No.
Maybe
If
not.
Something
it-
else
if it-
is there.
If it is there, it's so badly, it's probably a store or something
Yeah.
now, and everything, all the outside.
It's all cool.
Yeah, it's a
Taken
music
over.
store.
But the one on York Road has not lost its stone. It
No,
looks-
I know that one, because I
Yeah.
drive on that road often. I know the exact one you're talking
Yeah,
about.
my uncle owned it.
Did he?
Yeah.
But there were a lot of buildings along Thorold Stone there that they simply put a structure right over the top of it. That didn't follow the pattern or style of what you saw originally.
Oh, God,
And it was
no.
cheaper that way.
Yep.
It saved a lot of money on permits and those kinds of things.
What's next?
Anybody recognize
Simon?
it?
No.
Not quite.
This is,
Provincial engineering?
what is that?
Is it down in Silvertown? That's not Stamford, was it?
Are you going to read it to us?
I am. Just wanted to see if anybody could guess what it was first. It's Ramapo Ironworks. Am I saying that right?
Ramapo.
Ramapo Ironworks. Dating back to 1906, the Ramapo Ironworks plant supplied all of the major Canadian railroads with their products. The Dominion Brake Shoe Company acquired the plant in '58
Oh, yeah.
and continued to supply brake shoes and other railroad equipment. Today, the location is home to a medical plaza, which includes Stamford Pharmacy.
What's the address?
Yeah.
So it's just,
Looked it up.
yeah, we looked it up. It's, you know, when you're coming, it's on Portage Road, right before Drummond Road connects with Portage Road. Right
Okay.
by that
Five
little,
Corners.
yeah, so just
Yeah,
down
the
from
other
Five
side of the
Corners.
Five.
I know.
Yeah.
I know where the medical center is.
Do you?
Heading where? Up Drummond or down Thorold Stone?
No, it's down Portage Road.
No,
Portage.
it's on Portage. So it's on Portage right when, you know when Drummond becomes a one-way street?
Yes.
It's right, if you want to
The
continue to
crossover.
Five Corners, it's the crossover that connects Drummond to Portage,
Where
right
takes off
there.
to a V.
Isn't there a
Right?
big
No.
restaurant
Continues
there?
north out of Portage or south on Drummond.
I remember when it was still going. I knew a lot of guys working there
At the
It's
brake
before
company?
the overpass to the hospital.
as a brake company.
That's where it is, up Portage, isn't it? It was
Yeah.
there.
No, it's after
No,
that.
it's
It's after the hospital. I can,
Well, it depends
I'll
which
bring
way
it
you
up
What's the
on Google
cross
Maps
street?
if
Do you
you
have
want.
the
Yeah.
cross street?
I'll give you the cross street. Just give me a moment.
Well, you said you know where the medical plaza is.
Yeah, it's.
Is it not where
it's not
near-
where- it's not
well,
far
which
from where
medical
Paul
plaza?
Foy
There's several of them.
Pontiac used to be.
Oh, Paul Foy?
Yeah,
I
that's
was
right.
thinking it was near that big, is it a Greek restaurant? On
It's
Portage?
just,
That was
That's
where the
where the
Rebo
Delphi.
Dairy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just.
I think it's just down from that.
It's,
Over tiles, then
it's
there's the Greek
north of
restaurant.
that though.
I
It is
can-
north of that, yeah.
So the pharmacy that's there, the medical center, is between Portage and Carroll Avenue
Mhm.
now. And the closest other street that I can see is Gallinger Street. So it's Gallinger, sorry, comes into Portage Road. I can show you this little map if you'd like. Sorry, I don't think I was being very clear before. So see where the little Stamford
Yeah, it was
pharmacy
still
is?
working when I came
That's
here.
As the brake company.
That's where
Oh,
this
yeah.
is. So
So
this
there's
is
the
Portage
crossover.
Road, and this is Drummond Road here. Oops, sorry. let's
Okay.
let
Let the
that go
ladies
away.
get their bearing.
Yeah,
Well, this
that-
is the
We just called
crossover from
it,
Drummond over to Portage, because
Right.
Portage goes one way.
because I don't know what
there.
it had
And then
been
if you were to
before
come
that.
up this way, here's
I
Four
just know what it
Corners.
was
Yes.
when I came here.
5 corners.
5 corners. So this
So
is,
it's
pretty
right
large.
here.
this is a Dr. Jackowitz has been located there. His wife is still there, but he's
Of
not.
course,
He's,
when there's houses.
Well, I know where it was. It
Yeah,
doesn't,
and
So
the
is
old
that the
trolleys
spot?
used to
Yep,
go
this is
past
the
there
exact
too.
spot where this
Oh,
used to be.
okay, okay.
Did you want to see the map or anyone
Because
else?
that parcel of land, as you see it now on the footprint, would
it's right
seem
here.
like this building that we
Right
see
on
here
the
would need a
source
much larger
This
parcel
is
of
it right
land
here.
than what
And so there's
what that has
Portage,
occupied.
And there's Drummond, and that's like that
That's
little
huge.
cross of road
Yeah,
I was talking
yeah.
about.
Well, there's more frontal space in those days, and there's more, nothing behind it.
I don't remember this then.
No, this is
Yeah, I
a
have
lot
no
long before my
recollection of that
time.
at
Yeah,
all.
this,
But
Yeah.
John remembers
Drummond,
people
here's
that worked
Portage,
at the
and
brake
this is where
company.
it was located, right there.
see, I don't remember this
That was
at all.
Dominion Break.
Dominion
That's all,
Break. Yeah.
that's all I ever heard it called. Dominion
It's
Break.
another one of those wonderful manufacturing businesses that Niagara Falls have lost completely now.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
This used to be a big employer of good mechanical people and paid well, good pensions.
Yeah.
And we've transitioned almost entirely to a service industry. It seems
Yeah.
all of our big businesses like this have gone.
Well, and one of the reasons for that is, one, it was close to the border, and two, the electricity was really
Yeah.
cheap. Like a lot of businesses located here because of cheap electricity, which we all know doesn't exist
But
anymore.
that changed, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
I mean,
changed.
And so our industry changed.
Well, I think in my mind, in Stamford and Niagara Falls, there was 25 big companies like this, and there's not one of them now. We depend not on solely our houses for to pay the taxes. That's all they put up. They're putting up more houses, apartment
Yeah, I'm sure the
buildings.
commercial assessment's a lot less than it used to
That's
be.
all.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
for sure. All right, what have we got next?
Oh,
Project
no.
again.
Same one.
That's not
Good.
That looks like a body of water with something sailing on the top.
I know what this one should have been. It's
Isn't that
Uncle
the
Tom
sky?
Cabins.
That's right across my grandmother's place.
Yeah, so what a couple people have talked about remembering Uncle Tom's Cabins and what they were, what they weren't, so. I can pass this around. It's a bit dark.
You can see
Do we
it.
want to turn the lights
Can
on?
we turn the
So
lights
that
on
is-
momentarily?
That is,
Yeah.
Where was Uncle Tom's
We're on
cabin?
Throatstone
There's lots
Road,
of places
Yes, that
like
sounds familiar.
just up from the Cyan.
I was gonna say, didn't it
Yes.
kind of almost overlook the plants, sort of?
Well,
No, it wasn't that
No.
far.
they
It
were,
was
my
closer
grandmother's
to
place was here, and they were over, there's a big,
Yes.
It's where
but it was like,
abandoned
it was
printing
again,
is.
you know, you got all the tourist traffic going to Niagara Falls, you want a place
Yep.
to stay overnight.
I remember, I remember.
And they're little red, I believe they're little red cabins, they didn't
Yeah.
look like much from what I can remember.
It's more or less across from that stone house
Yeah.
that we were looking
Yeah,
at before.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
wonder how long we get
It's
away with the
down near
name.
the car
Uncle Tom's
dealership
now.
place. Yeah.
Not long.
Sorry, wonder what?
No.
How long we get away
Well,
with
that's
the name
the,
Uncle Tom's now.
Well, it's historic, so we don't have to change it. So it's
Vaguely,
not offensive
Yeah.
anymore.
Vaguely
Once
remember
it
that.
becomes
Yeah.
a story.
yeah, before my time.
Yeah, well, they
Besides, I
were
had
still
an
around
uncle-
up until
I had
the
an Uncle
late
Tom.
60s.
Yes, I know, but I just don't remember them.
You don't remember them?
Vaguely, vaguely. I was a young kid, eh?
Well, by then you had so much competition too, and they probably required a lot of upkeep, I'm guessing, too, because they were old
Can we see
buildings.
these
Yeah.
others that we couldn't see before?
Well, these are all the images that you saw up there. They're-
Okay, but
yeah.
there was something here that was
Yeah,
that
we
way
have-
We'll
around.
see them later.
You'll get
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's
let's
go on
move
with
on.
what we have.
Yeah, we'll try to see if we can continue with the PowerPoint, just because it makes it a bit
Yeah.
easier.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we
Wanna
see
turn
them?
the lights
Yeah.
off? All right, we got this one up here. So, does anybody know what this is before I read it?
Is that Dorchester Road?
No, I think it's, I
We
think this
give
is
up.
on
Go ahead,
Thoroldstone
Rita.
Road, all right.
It's obviously a vacancy.
There's so many
It's-
cabins in front of it.
Swalms White Star. Did I say that right?
Sounds familiar.
Swalms? Swalms?
Swan-
What street?
Yes.
This Thoroldstone Road residence was purchased in 1918 by local businessman Edgar Swam, who, along with his wife Matilda, offered rooms, meals, and a bath to interested tourists. Now a Jiffy Lube, this site has been owned by Barry Allen since 1988.
Yep, I know
So
exactly.
Thoroldstone
That's
Road.
Thorpstone and
Heading towards Dorchester.
Dorchester.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm almost sure that house on the left is my grandmother's.
Really?
I don't remember.
So
Oh,
again, the
don't you wish you
photograph
knew it now?
is just representative
No.
of what was happening in those days, right? Before we had the hotels and industry that we have now. This is how people came to the
Or it
falls
was one over, but
and
it
stayed.
looks a
Yeah.
lot.
Nice
tourist
big
homes
old
and small motels.
Wow, is it still there?
Everybody and their cousin was renting
It's a
rooms in their
chiropractic.
house.
Yeah.
And they'd go
It's a
and live in the
chiropractic
basement or the attic.
Yeah, well, Mark was saying he remembers that his family, the father or the grandfather, in the summer, they'd sleep outside. So
My
the
father
rooms-
and my uncles did, because they rented the rooms out.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, Thurlestone was Lundy's Lane of its day.
yeah.
That's highway number 8 right out. There's still the occasional one on the way out to Hamilton on number 8.
Yeah.
But at one time they were
Okay.
bumper to bumper.
Yeah. We're gonna have luck with the next one, Laura?
Fingers crossed.
Not bad. So this is the Town and
That's
Country
here.
Plaza. The Town and Country Plaza was
Yep.
founded in '55. Some of the early tenants were Montgomery's Pharmacy,
Yep.
the
Yep.
Canadian Bank of Commerce,
Yep.
Stamford Center Library, Kenny's Bakery, and the Brewer Retail.
Remember Kenny's?
Shown in the
I knew
photo,
him.
around 1960, the A&P grocery store was also one of the founding stores. The plaza has undergone various expansions and renovations throughout the years. Today, it is home of Global Pet Foods.
So we all know where that is then.
Yeah.
Do we know anybody that worked there? Does
Oh, yeah,
anybody
our
know
neighbor
anybody that
did,
worked at the
yeah.
A&P or
Yeah.
one of those shops?
I used to cut through there from school,
Yeah.
because this was a cherry orchard.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's before then the A&P in
Yep.
mid-70s redeveloped their whole thing.
Yeah.
I think they took over Montgomery's. I remember going to Montgomery's a lot, and then I guess Caswell's wasn't in there then, was it? The clothing shop. They were like 3 doors down. I guess that's the beginning, because they don't have the other part of the plaza built on yet.
Not yet, no.
Yeah, really old.
Yeah, it says that this photo's from around 1960, if that helps at all.
Yeah.
I think Caswell's might have been there.
Yeah, I didn't move to Stamford till '65.
Those don't look like 1960 cars.
No.
What about the ones on the left of the picture?
But it was a gorgeous cherry orchard with
Yeah.
2 wonderful
Oh,
Sorry,
stanchions at
before
the
this
front.
was built? Or
Yeah.
Okay,
Before.
so you remember the cherry orchard that was,
30s and 40s and
Removed
50s,
for
and it was
this.
owned by, actually, what it was called Canadian Canners at the time.
was
And
it?
the cherries would go to St. David's to be canned. But it was the most magnificent cherry orchard.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you mentioned that. You mentioned Bright's Wines way early. They also had Bright's Canning.
Yeah.
That was located not too far from where that old iron place that we just saw was. And in the summertime, you could smell the tomatoes being like they were processing them. It wasn't always a great smell, but yeah, Bright's Canning was there for the longest time.
There were a
too.
lot of canning factories,
Yeah.
fruits and vegetables
yeah.
in the Stamford
And
area.
it was all, I'm guessing mostly locally.
And that
produced
one in
stuff.
St. David's that you're talking about, that these, it's now a subdivision called the Cannery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a chocolate store there too.
Yeah, Chocolate FX.
Next.
Let's hope, there we go.
Let's hope for Hope's Restaurant.
Hope's Restaurant.
So Hope's Restaurant and Tourist Home was a
Yep.
landmark at this busy Stamford
So
Center
small.
intersection for more than 40 years.
Yep.
This photo was taken in 1930, shortly after the restaurant was built. The site remains in the restaurant business today as a busy Tim Hortons location.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we tried to look this up and I didn't have enough time to do, where is it? Where was it?
It's 5 Corners,
It's a- is
where the
it?
Tim Hortons is
Oh,
now.
it's
Yeah.
5 Corners.
Right.
Where Camiso's Plaza is, because Camiso's is right behind.
And
Yeah.
that restaurant was rebuilt
Yeah.
since then, because we used to get fish and chips there a lot. Not from this one, from the one they
later
rebuilt.
one.
And I remember in the 60s and maybe even early, well, in the 60s anyway, like they would close this thing down in the wintertime and go to Florida.
yeah,
And they
Right.
would run it from May
That's
to September or something like that.
I remember.
They used to call it Hopies, didn't they?
Well, Hopi, we used to call the owner Hopi. It was
Okay.
Hope's Restaurant.
Remember it, John?
Yeah, I've eaten there.
Yeah, oh, I've eaten there many times.
We all
But
have.
it was only in summertime, as you said.
Yeah.
The wintertime, they closed it down because there's no business for a restaurant in the wintertime.
Wow, there
Well, I
you
used to go to Florida too.
Oh, yeah, they went to Florida, sure.
Right
Wow.
across the road on the corner was Ayrton's drugstore.
Yeah.
Me?
The car on the far side.
Yeah, there's an old car on the far side, and it
Yeah.
says, but can anybody read to me what the sign Says no what?
Parking.
No parking on curve.
Parking, is that the word?
Yeah, no parking on curve.
Because you're on the busy street
So
there.
that would
That's
be on
Stone
the
Right
Road.
around.
Going around and onto Portage.
Onto Portage,
That
yeah.
house on the next, on the left side there,
Yeah.
is still there, except it's a lot larger and been added to. But it's built, it's an office
Yeah, I think
building
you're right,
now.
yeah.
And it sort of butts up against Tim Hortons.
Pretty close.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
know
close.
the one. Yeah.
I mean, the buildings don't butt up, but the lot
Yeah.
line would, you know.
What kind of food did you eat there at Hope's?
Hamburgers, hamburgers, hamburgers.
Well,
Fish
fish,
and
we used to
chips.
get fish and chips.
Oh, no,
Fish and
early
chips,
on, they served, it was a dine, you went there to dine.
Diner, yeah.
Yeah, it was a diner, yeah, they had the old stools
I don't know when.
with the counter, and then they had booths. And I think they had those little musical things, you could put a dime in
In
it,
your booth?
in your booth and
Yeah.
press it, and
Yeah, they definitely.
I think they had them too.
That's
I
neat.
remember playing.
A
I'm always
jukebox.
interested in the food.
Well, it wasn't a jukebox, each table had a
Oh,
thing, and
okay.
you could go through them and pick
Little
one.
jukeboxes.
Yeah.
Have you, these particular pictures are used for the 150th anniversary. Are there other copies available? This is the only extra
Laura?
copy?
When you say copy, do you mean like a print version of it? Because all of these pictures are from our digital collection
No,
at the
no, but
library.
Has anybody, are there any more of these
Those posters?
Here
posters
today?
available?
They, sure, you know what, leave your name and we can reach out to you. We were talking about reproducing them, but we hadn't really had a lot of requests for them yet. But yeah, leave your name with us and we'll reach out to
We
you.
have a friend whose mother worked there.
Oh,
As a
well,
waiting
Oh,
for-
wonderful.
And actually, she met, as I remember, she said her mother met her father there, who was a trucker to stop, you know.
really?
Yeah, I believe it, because it was right, Old Stone Road.
See,
Yeah.
that's exactly the kind of stories that
Yeah.
afternoons like this are supposed to
Yeah.
let us add to the collection.
Romance on the
I-
roadside.
I thought she might like to see the picture. Of
I
the
bet
old-
she would.
Absolutely, leave your information with us and we'll reach out to you with it.
Okay. thank you.
Lovely.
Okay.
And if she has any information she wants to share with the library, she should. Sounds
Absolutely.
like she's got a good story.
I think there's only one left. So this is Clark's Tourist Camp.
No,
Which
This
one?
one was
Sorry,
really
didn't-
Clark.
Clark's.
Clark's Tourist Camp. Camping was popular with tourists coming to the falls in the 1920s, and many local residents opened campgrounds on their property as a way to earn extra income. The route along Highway 8 on the way into the city was a particularly popular one. Clark's Tourist Camp, seen here in the 1920s, was located on the site now occupied by Camiso's Fresh Foods.
So it would be behind the Hope's Restaurant where it is.
Yeah, right next
Yeah,
to it.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's an old picture, those are old
Yeah.
barns.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You imagine a family staying in those little cubby holes?
Not a very big family.
No,
Yeah.
I kind of remember it as being a lot of fun. Actually, the garage at our house down number 8 highway there was a restaurant, was a kind of ice cream stand. It's still built in the structure that was designed to have the side open, and the counter is there, and it's wired completely for coolers, freezers, stoves, lights. And it sat on the east side of number 8 highway to accommodate people who were driving, just as these gentlemen have said, between here and St. Catharines and vice versa. But I'm told by the people that were here at the time that the traffic was so dense that the cars would be stopped because there was so much traffic, and the bridge at Homer was problematic.
Yeah.
oh, it'd be just one lane in those days.
Yeah, so they would have a captive audience
guess
for
so.
ice cream,
Yeah.
burgers, and whatever, I gather.
And this is a garage that's on your property still?
Mhm.
Fantastic. Sorry, is that like out where the tunnel would be? That way? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, it's before you
Yeah.
get to the tunnel going
Yeah.
down to St.
Be
David's.
past the green.
Yeah, because
Right.
that, like you said, at one point you would have had a bridge issue there.
Well, the bridge was more at Homer. You seem to be pointing toward Thorold.
I was thinking of that, yeah.
No, that's Lundy's Lane, or that's Portage Road going up the number 8 highway, turned at Hope, and then went south. Went north
Towards St. David's.
towards St. David's. You
Okay,
came
yeah.
Yeah, and it did go through, there was a tunnel there at one time.
At the bottom
A
towards.
small
St.
tunnel,
David's.
which they rejigged the
And
road
everybody
back
used
in
to honk
the
the
early
horn.
70s.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
They rejigged the road back in this, and.
We would
and
tell our
I-
father to honk the horn when we
Wasn't
run
that
into
called
it.
Sandplant Hill? Or was that the Queenie
No,
Hill?
Sandplant Hill is the Queen
The
Elizabeth.
Queen
That's
Hill.
QEW.
The Queenie Hill.
We called
Yeah.
that one Sandplant Hill as well, because there was a sand.
Well, there was a sand, yeah, that's where the
Well, there was a
sanders
sand
used to pick up their
pit
sand
there.
from.
No, we called it
Roads.
Sandplant Hill
Yeah.
in the
I
50s.
don't know, I used to work at Sandplant Hill.
Well,
And,
I know the other one they called
Before
it
that, there was
Sandplant.
an ossuary for native
That's
Indians.
the sand plant, that's the sand.
We used to call it the sand camp.
But that he's talking about.
He's
Yeah.
splitting hairs with me. I just know we called it Sandplant as well, both of them.
Could be, sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, very good.
And at that corner, the Simcoes lived there in the summer to get out of Niagara on the Lake because it's so humid.
And it was then occupied by the Lieutenant Governor, not Simcoe, the next.
You don't have any
Forgotten
pictures
name.
of the stores at Stamford Center?
I'm sure the library does. The library has
Oh,
thousands of images in their digital collection. So there was a couple left that wouldn't come up. We can just pass those around if you want.
So
That's the first one, Kristen.
this one was the one that we looked at, and only the very top of the photo was visible, so it's the Morrison Street Bridge. Niagara Falls needed another road to run east-west since Lundy's Lane was operating near capacity. The planners decided to extend Morrison Street and build a bridge over the Hydra Canal. The nearby Portage Road Canal Bridge was deteriorating, so Portage Road was realigned to avoid crossing the canal and its bridge demolished. Mullen Garden Market, which backs onto the Hydra
Yes.
Canal,
Yep.
is just west of the Morrison Bridge. So I'll pass that one around.
So the bridge.
And if you want to
the-
make comments.
I know
go
they
for it.
closed it to traffic, but there was a pedestrian walkway over that. Is that gone now?
Oh, yeah. The whole, everything's gone.
No, I remember when they closed the bridge, but they left part of it open just for,
No,
for foot traffic.
No.
Because I know they rejigged the whole thing. You had into a.
Because Portage
Now
has
we
that
could do
dog
that.
leg now.
Now, all we have to line up like crazy
Yeah.
on Drummond Road now.
No, I hear you.
If-
No, I used to come down that way over the canal and over the railway bridge, which is gone now by Rainbow Dairies.
they used to call Portage Road north and south. And a trucker, I used to live Portage North, and he stopped me and said, "Do you know where the hell this address is?" I go, "Yeah, I do. But you gotta go to Stamford Center, make a jog over to the Portage South.
South.
That's what you
Yeah.
want." So, why don't you people think in straight lines? I don't know, I didn't have anything to do with this road system.
I always thought it was a stupid idea because
Yeah.
number
Yeah.
one, it would have been cheaper to build a very short bridge because the canal is very narrow. And then yes, that bridge was deteriorating, but it was not being kept up. It was allowed to go to rack and ruin. All they had to do was build a new one. They didn't have to tear out all those houses and reshift the road and create that dog's leg, which is such a bloody nuisance.
Yep.
It just makes you want to shake your head sometimes what some of these people do. You know, it's like sit down and really think about it. You know, but it's still a nuisance after all this time.
It is, it's the strangest engineering
But Hydro,
decision that I've ever seen.
There's no engineering
And I
in it. It's just
I look at
guesswork.
it, having lived all over the world, and say to myself, yeah, this is Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
but
Every city's got their own unique little things.
Yeah,
like
my
that.
friend came out from Edmonton, she says, "You know, Rosemary, you guys do this in Niagara Falls. You go here, you gotta turn here, you gotta turn here to catch that road." She says Edmonton is,
It's on a grid.
Well, it's flat.
flat.
Isn't Edmonton flat?
Is it?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
It's a little
why.
Or you go to
younger.
Guelph, it's a spoke and
not
hub,
quite as
so
old
once you go,
either.
you can't just turn around and come back. You have to dick around too.
But Hydro, I mean, the city, they're only elected for 3 or 5 years or whatever, and that's all they want to consider. Wait till I get through this, and then let somebody else worry about it afterwards. And then they closed the bridge and knocked it down.
I know, but it
Are we
doesn't
done?
make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense,
Even though
no.
they're only elected for 4 years' time, they,
The
if
Millennium
they
Trail
use
is
common
all
sense,
in
they've got to
that
plan
They-
long-term.
define
there is a trail
That's
there.
the grown-up
Millennium
way.
Trail, okay.
I don't know if it's the Millennium Trail though.
I know they did build a trail next
Yeah,
to
they
the
did
Hydro
build a
Canal.
trail.
Yeah.
I've never been on it. That was-
No, I haven't either.
I take that dog leg home every night.
There you go.
I know it well. But I can't remember your question about whether there's still a footbridge or not. I think
Well,
there
I
is.
think it's probably gone too.
No, there's
Maybe.
no
No
footbridge.
footbridge anymore?
Because
even?
when they
No?
closed the bridge to vehicle traffic, they left the
little
pedestrian, the sidewalk open for a while.
Right.
Did you have another picture that
Pardon
we
me.
didn't see?
I remember that Brian Merritt was the regional chair at that time.
But do you want to?
And he was one of
wasn't
the
in the
people
slide.
that was campaigning to try to put aside this dogleg plan and just build a new bridge. And he was unfortunately not listened to.
No, he's dead now.
It's too
Yes.
late now, isn't it?
Pardon me, I wanted to say,
Yeah.
when the people were saying, how could you be in these little cabins? We went in
Why do we
mid-1950s
have to
to
sign
New
this
Brunswick,
paper,
Yep.
I wonder?
and every place we were, and in New Brunswick.
That's only
well,
because they're
That's all there was there.
recording it.
I
They
know,
might
well, that
use
was
your-
right before we had hotel
Call
Can I
it
chains.
see the other
something.
pictures that I may have missed?
Yeah,
And people then were just really getting cars for the first time, right? It
This one
wasn't
was
until
the
after
house
World
that
War
was
II
cut
that
off.
we all
Pardon
started
me?
to drive
This one was the
everywhere we
only other
went.
one that was
Never
cut
I
off
mean, the
on
homes
the
were like,
PowerPoint.
what
Oh,
they
okay.
said is over
Cut off
there.
here, you didn't
Yeah,
see the
That's
horse,
what
so
my wife
that's it.
keeps
This
saying.
is my
Where are
grandparents'
the-
house at Stamford Center.
Where are
Right
the
there.
starter
Right,
homes?
there was Ireton's
All
Drug
these
Store,
huge
Powell's
homes are
Meat
going up,
Market, the shoe repair.
700,000,
My
etc.
grandparents lived right
Where
there.
are the,
Next door.
she's always saying,
So when
where
I
are
came,
the
you had only
starter
not
homes for
really
these?
Portage
started.
and-
Yeah, you came at the first
By the
wall.
little old
What
kids,
would be
I
near?
say.
What
Can we
would be
change the
across
subject?
street?
Sure.
It wouldn't.
We are
It wouldn't
interested in
because
the history of
Stamford
a
Center is
particular
the
house
five
or
corners
particular site
and
in
across from
Stamford.
Hope's Restaurant was Ireton's
These
Drug
people
Store.
So would this, would
There you
Thornstone
go.
Road be around?
No,
They
this
know
is
the
Portage.
You're a friend of
Okay,
Stamford
Portage,
First
but is it-
Village, right?
Of course, I was
Where on
program chair
Portage?
for a number of
I know
years.
you were. I
Okay,
used to
you know
talk
where
to
the
you
Hope's
about
Restaurant
Yes.
was on this
At any
corner?
rate,
Yes.
Across the
property
road
is
was
at the
Ireton's
corner-
Drug Store on this
Okay.
corner,
corner of
then there was the
Stamford
red and
Green Drive.
white,
Yeah,
then
no,
there
color
was
I
chart.
can't
Yeah.
hear
Then, yes, Meat Market,
It's very
Okay.
Paul's Meat Market,
Okay,
then
so-
next door is Williams Shoe Repair,
I-
and then there we're next
Okay,
door.
I know where that is because.
Yes.
Was
He
it the
might-
Big
he
Cup
might-
or something, used to be a restaurant there, which
Mark
is now
might
the
be
Scotia
helpful,
Bank
yeah.
Plaza?
Yes,
Scotia
that's where it
Bank
is,
there.
exactly where it
And
is.
I remember the shoemaker died back in the
Williams, Mr.
60s.
Williams.
He died, he had a heart attack and died, so that place closed. And there was a barber shop there, and there
Yes.
was a butcher shop there.
That was my uncle's,
Yeah. The butcher shop?
yes?
Yeah.
Paul's Meat
I
Market.
remember it as a kid going in there because they had sawdust on the floor.
Floor, I used to
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
The property we're talking about is at the corner of Stamford Green Drive and St. George. And it includes the Prest property.
Yes, that's
And-
right there.
And you
Miss
go
Prest.
back up Stamford Green Drive to, oh, I can't remember what the cross street. And the property pretty much went over to Russell, but not entirely. And in the middle of this Prest property, there is a substantial mansion that has been for sale
Yes.
for the last few months, and it's now, I guess, up
Used to
to
be the
part-
old Gold home,
Right. And this
Rankin
is-
Gold.
This is the gold representative here. And what we're trying to find out is the old history. The reported history shows it as 1872. But the general understanding was that the house was there perhaps even as far back as 1812.
Wow.
Because the church, as you know, the Presbyterian church down there, was used briefly as a hospital,
Yeah.
more or less, or holding place. And that this house had some activity of the same nature, although we can't really verify it. I'm asking what anybody
anybody
might
know
know
about
about
that
that
history?
property.
Does the library have a special collection section?
We certainly can look up with our
Because
city
if you
directories.
do, that's
We
where
can
I would
track
start.
addresses that way, and if you, again, give me your contact information, I'll have our local history librarian reach out to you, and we can do some searches and see what we have in our files. I can't guarantee we do, but we have a lot of stuff in our files.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Do you know the exact address as it is now?
68, I can't remember precisely this minute.
It was 707, and then what did they add to it to change the address?
Yes.
the address has changed twice, once in the 20s and once, I think, late 60s.
Yeah.
So we can jump
Yes,
that,
that's right,
we can
'cause-
jump
'cause
along
we
that with
lived
our
at
directories.
51 Drummond, then it became 4051 Drummond. That's right.
So certainly, give me your information, and we'll put you in touch with Kathy Roy, and she's our local history librarian, and we can see what we can find.
Yes, I should report to you guys at least because some of you know Cyanamid. I have worked a fair bit with Kathy on the Cyanamid records that I pull in the nature of the company history records. That is, agreements, contracts, engineering, chemistry, and so forth, without a lot of success. But I did give her a box of information with respect to the written history of the processes and chemistry that we used. And she has quite a large number of pictures related to the swimming pool, which you all know.
Yeah, no, everybody went swimming there.
And that era, not a fair amount on the plant itself, but not a great deal.
Did you work there?
Yes.
My grandfather did too.
I understand they made chemicals for Agent Orange there.
Beg your pardon?
I understand they made chemicals for Agent Orange there.
No, we didn't.
No.
That is much later, and that was Occidental on the other side of the river.
Because I had heard, like, not Agent Orange itself, but a chemical that went into it that they used in Vietnam.
No, not, I can almost assure you that not the case.
What did cyanamide make?
Cyanamide made a product called cyanamide with an E on the end. And cyanamide is a composition of carbon and limestone. And
What did they use it for?
And they fused it together, and then they impregnated it with nitrogen. You remember the old liquid air plant? Right on Stanley? A lot of windows. And the liquid oxygen, liquid nitrogen come from the separation under pressure. And the nitrogen is impregnated into this composition of coke and limestone, and that's cyanamide. And that is the first nitrogen-bearing commercial fertilizer.
Yes,
That's what I was going to say. Didn't they make fertilizer?
that's what I, yeah.
But
I thought
nitrogen
that's what you might
is
be
the
getting
active
to.
ingredient in fertilizer, is it not?
Yes, right.
My
That's-
cousin was Bob Reed, son of the aunt I spoke of. He was an engineer there for all his life.
I remember, Bob.
You know Bob, the red-headed.
I used to work at the plant.
Yeah.
My grandfather did.
He'd be considerably older than you, Cam, I'm sure.
Everybody is. I hope. At any rate, it.
Because he's a lot
for
older than me.
what it's worth, there is a fair record of cyanamide at under Kathy's possession now at the downtown center, if anybody is interested, and certainly some appropriate pictures too.
When we did the 150 at the Victoria Street Library, when we did this session a couple months ago, that's when we brought those pictures.
Yeah.
They didn't come out at
You
this
have a
session.
picture like this in the window of the arena down.
At the Gale Center. They
At
have
the Gale
a very
Center, right.
large one there.
Which has
Yeah.
a pretty large picture of the old cyanamide plant.
Yeah, and we talked about it at the Victoria Street session. We talked about what people remembered mostly about the pool. How everybody remembers swimming in the
Everybody is
pool.
fascinated by those
I went
Absolutely.
swimming there.
center.
Wow.
I was 5 years
My
old when I
grandfather
got
used to
my
swim
first
there.
swim certificate there. Because I grew up just a block away.
It was pea green. It was pea green, that pool. The first week I
That was one
swam
of the
there, I got
questions.
sick.
Were people concerned about a swimming pool beside a chemical plant?
Not in those
Was that
days.
ever-
Not in those days.
Not in those.
Never
That was
dawned
the
on
best
anyone.
public relations activity that
Absolutely.
That they ever did was
And it was
create that
done
pool.
solely under the direction of the manager of the plant.
Was it?
I mean, the rest of the corporation wouldn't support it at all, but he said, that's a cooling pond and we're going to use it to
Yeah.
swim in. And
There were so many people came from across the river because in those days you'd say, where are you going? We're going to Cyanamide swimming. Bang. That was all you had to say. You know, either way. You know, I'm going shopping, etc. And they waved you through and there were
But
so many.
there's a lot of
There's
throw-off
nothing
on
on the
that.
other side.
A lot of other little things happened from that. We had to hire nurses, we had to hire lifeguards.
Lifeguards.
Yeah, I remember the first
But my
day.
associate here, Janet, got addicted to the french fries that were, what was the
What
guy's
was the
name?
chip truck?
Yeah.
Jake's.
Yeah,
Jake.
yeah, the
The chip
best
truck.
fries in town.
That's what everybody says. I find that
And
amusing.
during the week, he was downtown beside the theater, the show. And we'd save our pennies up, and after we'd been to the show, we'd go, and we had to have our cone of fries.
Yeah, because they came in cones.
Well, I'm gonna go.
It wasn't
Yeah.
called Jake's in those days. The son-in-law
Yeah.
was Jake. And of course, the old man passed away and turned over to his son-in-law and daughter, you know, who still have it. So,
We should do this again a year from now, get more Stamford Center pictures, and I'd come back to this. This is
Yeah, you
awesome.
know,
I really enjoyed it.
I'm surprised you didn't have a picture of the old bank in the middle of the V. There's Ireton's Drugstore, Paul's Meat Market, the red and white, they're right all in one
I
row.
think it was probably a hard choice for the people at the library, because like I said, the library's digital
It-
photo collection
yeah.
is pretty vast.
You
If
have
you go
no
into-
idea
And
how long
I
they've
was
been doing
pretty
this.
certain after having done similar things that an hour is really where
An
you
hour
need
is
to
good,
end
yeah,
at,
yeah.
right? And do more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said they got some really awesome old photos of Stamford Center hanging up in the
Yeah.
Stamford Lions Club.
Do they?
They have the old CIBC building, which was a wooden building before they built the brick building, which is now what, Hakim Optical or something in that little
Yeah,
green
yeah.
there. and pictures of the corner of Hopes and a few other things, like really, like from probably the 20s.
Janet has some pictures of that.
Yeah.
And she also has pictures of old buildings on St. Patrick's Street.
In the old red and white store, you go in off the sidewalk, you go up 5 steps, you open the door, then you go up another 6 steps into the red and white store and the creaky wooden floors.
Yeah,
Loved it.
That was Collard's Red and White, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where was it? In the
Right there at Stamford Center.
as well?
Where the Scotiabank Plaza
Yeah.
is?
Yeah.
And Ireton's drugstore was next door, and the Paul's Meat Market, the barber shop,
The shoemaker. Or
the shoemaker, Mr.
Yeah.
Williams. I used to love the smell of glue in there. I used to love it.
Get high on that, couldn't you?
I loved it.
That's a very telling statement.
And my grandparents lived right next door to the shoe repair.
Did they?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, it makes me, now that we're having this discussion, because I think that the value you have in photography in any community is just priceless.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I'm sure there's an awful lot of amateur stuff that you took on your own, your family took, things like that. And is there any way, or is it worthwhile to put out an appeal of some kind without being totally bombarded for people to submit copies of some of their
Well,
work?
I think that the library, because the library will take a copy. Myself at the museum, I only take originals. So people.
What museum are you from?
We're at the History Museum, the Niagara
Yeah.
Falls History Museum.
Oh, up
But this is the library's project, and
Yes.
it's the library's project, and it should be, because you
Yeah.
guys have a better photo collection than the
Yeah.
museum, and you take copies. So if somebody says, I don't want to give you this, but you're more than welcome to copy it, and they add it to their digital collection. That's something we don't do at the
Yeah.
museum.
Yeah.
So the library does
Museum is
exactly
awesome.
that,
So
Margaret.
you do, okay, because I often wondered that. Because people keep talking to me, and they're asking me questions. Gee, I'm looking for a picture of Barker Street School before they tore down the present, the old one. And just all kinds of things that we would all remember growing up here. And I always say, well, go to the library. And they say, well, they have, but they haven't got it. Well, somebody's got pictures of those things.
Yeah.
Because in this community, people were shutterbugs in days when it was a little brownie camera, or one of those things that was an accordion that my father had when I was a little girl, okay? And people were, they cherished their photographs and they passed them on down the generations.
Yeah, I brought some. This is the house at Stamford Center, right next door to the shoe repair. My grandparents sold eggs there.
Is it still
Next door to
there?
what did you say?
Shoe repair.
Oh,
Mr. Williams Shoe Repair. And this is the old house next door. Look at the size of that sucker.
Yes.
There was
What
5.
address would be that? What would that be?
That was 57 Portage Road. And there's the big house next door. There's my grandmother shoveling the snow.
Back in the days.
The library is
And there's Williams Shoe Repair at Stamford
I
Center.
remember that.
The library's digital collection is online.
Remember
It's a lot
the
of
glue?
you can keyword search a lot of it. So it's on our website, or you can come in and we'll help you with that. It's keyword searchable for all of the images that we have cataloged so far. I can't even begin to tell you how many we have that we have not yet cataloged. That collection is growing. Day by day, we're adding things to it. So even if we didn't have it at one point, we might have it. Or I know with the schools, we have vertical files for the schools, and the school board's also a really great resource for archives on the schools.
Good.
But we are constantly adding to it, and we welcome. So please bring in and share with us.
My grandparents' place is it's the red apartment building next door to the Brighton.
Yep, I know where that is.
That's-
I remember when
that's where they
that red apartment building went up. It was like the biggest, tallest building in Stamford Center for the longest time.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
What a sad thing my grandmother sold.
I'd like to thank everyone for
Thank
coming.
you.
Okay.
No, thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. And thank you to our hosts from the museum, Suzanne and Christine, they were wonderful.
Thank you.